purpose of this hearing is to discuss United States competition with China and learn how the administration is working to maintain a strong U.S. presence in the Indo-Pacific. I recognize myself for an opening statement. We stand at a pivotal moment in history where the dynamics of global power are shifting rapidly. The great power competition with China is not just a contest of military might or economic dominance. It is a struggle over the rules which will shape the 21st century and the global balance of power. This is not a future threat or an isolated problem on the other side of the world.
And then I'm prepared to answer or engage on any issue. Probably the most important thing that we're going to need to do in terms of a national strategy in the Indo-Pacific is to sustain bipartisanship. And I do believe we're on the road to that now. I think there is a recognition that this is the most significant challenge in our history. Frankly, the Cold War pales in comparison to the multifaceted challenges that China presents. It's not just a military challenge, it's across the board. It is in the global south, it is in technology. We need to step up our game across the board. So what we also need to do is build much more capacity, both in Congress and inside the US government. I see it every day. And remember, for the last 20 years, we've been intensely focused on the Middle East and South Asia. So a lot of capacity there, Army, land forces, people who understand the Middle East and South Asia. That's still critical, but we need much more capacity in our government in a couple of areas. Language, understanding of the complex politics of the Indo-Pacific, but as importantly, recognizing that the dominant area of competition is in technology. So we need more people in government that know what AI is, that know what quantum computing is, that know how to create incentives for our own industries, but also block some of the critical capabilities from finding their way into the countries that are competing intensively with us. We need to invest more in technology domestically. I want to commend this group and others to understand investing in chips, working with other partners who have technology. That's going to be a critical arena of our national power going forward. We have to continue everywhere with engaging allies and partners. As the chairman indicates, it's go time for AUKUS. I believe we've made remarkable progress with the encouragement of Congress and the Senate as well. We need to be able to take a few more steps going forward. I appreciate the ranking member making clear that the Quad is meeting next week. We're meeting on Saturday. All the leaders are converging. They have a lot of questions about Delaware. We're trying to give them as much as we can. And the president's very much looking forward to showing them, where he's from, all those issues going forward. Really quickly to conclude, we're going to need more shipbuilding. We're going to need to invest more in our naval capabilities. If you think of the last 25 years, it's ground forces, special forces. Increasingly, we now need to focus more on our naval expeditionary capabilities. We need to understand that this is not just a competition in the Indo-Pacific, an arena where we are doing better. It's in the global south as well. And everywhere I go in the global south, I see challenges that we're facing. I will say I'm pleased to tell you that our DFC, you have funded that and supported that, is now competing toe-to-toe with the Chinese programs for investment through the Belt and Road. Lastly, we can talk about the partnerships, all the things that we need to do. As much as anything else, we need to educate the American people about the nature of the challenge ahead. It's not going to ease. It's going to continue. We need more resiliency in our own national institutions and a sense of national resolve for what it takes. I will say, sitting before you, Chairman, I think we're in a better place than we were several years ago. I will just remind you, 4 years ago, the general view globally was that China had eaten our lunch, that they were going to surpass us economically and commercially, that we were in the midst of some sort of hurtling decline. I do not think that is what the general belief is today, and that's largely due to the partnership that I think we've had with folks on this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Campbell. I now recognize myself for questions. One of my big takeaways from the region was how much progress we have made. The alliances between Japan, South Korea, Philippines is extraordinary. Who would think that those countries would be aligned together? It is a counter to China's malign influence. And in many respects, China could be its own worst enemy. With the belligerence against the Philippines, I think President Marcos has gotten even stronger in his rhetoric. And we certainly felt the island nations, as they feel more threatened by China, their perception of China changes. And I think Australia is in that category as well, which is why AUKUS is so important. As you mentioned, this is, if you pulled someone on the street, they wouldn't know what we're talking about. But I think it's one of the most important alliances that we've seen in recent history. The idea that the UK and Australia, the United States, can come together to counter the threat in the Pacific from China is really extraordinary. And it was bipartisan. The intent of Congress, as I stated in my op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, was the exemption to apply to all defense articles except those explicitly prevented by statute or treaty. Now, this excluded technology list came out. So you have ITAR that basically says, look, these international regulations are not going to apply to this partnership. However, the exceptions and the excluded technology list really got the intent of Congress and the bill itself. The current ETL does not reflect, in my view, the intent. Greg Meeks and I had dinner with some high-level DoD officials, the ambassador to China, and others. They too shared the concern about the State Department's interpretation of Pillar 2. Pillar 1, the nuclear submarines, seems to be well on its way. Pillar 2, though, I see in some respects even more important because, as you said, this is a great competition for technology and AI. So when I look at the list of accepted or excluded technologies, when it talks about precision weapons, this one, unmanned underwater vehicles. Well, we got a presentation in Australia of one of the most cutting-edge AI underwater vehicles that could really make a difference. That would be excluded by this technology list that came forward. Communication networks, naval acoustics, and then jet engines. That just being a few. I think that those broad categories of excluded technologies sends I think a really bad message to Australia that we don't trust them, even though we share the crown jewel nuclear submarine and they're Five Eyes, so we share with them our most sensitive intelligence, but we're not going to trust them with co-production. And I think co-production can actually help us with the defense industrial base problem that we have, also. So I kind of get a sense where you are, sir, on this. And I think I have a good understanding where the secretary is. I happen to think that these decisions were made at a lower level, and they were done in a very proprietary, protective way that will damage, again, the intent of Congress. So my takeaway to you, sir, if you take this back to the secretary, is raise this to the higher level, the policy level of people that know what the right thing is to do, that know what Congress intended to do, because it's not what came out on this list that, by the way, it was 4 months delayed. And I think we can get there. We got about 60 days, but I would challenge you and the secretary to work with us, Mr. Meeks, myself, and, with the Department of Defense to get to a better place because, look, in Australia, it's a 50-year commitment, and they see that. And, that's a strong commitment to Australia and to the UK in a common defense against China. If we fail at this one, then I think we've poorly executed the plan that we had. And I can tell you, based on intelligence I've seen without getting into classified, AUKUS is probably one of those issues that Chairman Xi is most concerned about, and probably is the one that keeps him up at night. And so I want to give you a chance to respond.
So first of all, Chairman, sincerely, I appreciate these comments, and I'm going to take those views back. And it's something I've worked on AUKUS since its inception. I think it's very strategically significant. I will just underscore a couple of things. The natural instincts of our government, rightly, at DOD, at the State Department, is to restrict technologies that have been central to our national security. But you're absolutely right. If we've made this decision to work in the strongest possible partnership with our two closest allies in many respects, Great Britain and Australia, we're going to have to make those adjustments. It will be challenging, but we're going to have to make those adjustments. Now, what I will tell you, just by way of just a quick explanation, those areas that you mentioned, acoustics and stuff, it is not that the folks at lower levels are saying the answer is no. They're saying we have to review each case as it comes to us. It doesn't mean that they'll reject it, but I think what our Australian friends are primarily concerned with, Chairman, is that could lead to a very cumbersome process, long reviews, overruns in terms of times and delivery. And so we need to make this usable for defense planners and others that are making billion-dollar investments. And so I think the point that you're underscoring is critically important. Your op-ed, your letters, what you have done in conjunction with the ranking member have actually helped us to be able to make sure that we are doing the right thing in our government to acknowledge this partnership. Just one last thing I would say. So Pillar 1 is the part that's about the submarines. Pillar 2 doesn't get enough attention, and that's really about not just, we have 3 countries engaged in that now, but looking at advanced technologies, capabilities that are innovative, perhaps not as expensive. And you're exactly right. If you look behind the scenes, both Great Britain and Australia have made investments in innovative capabilities that would be very good for us. So we need to break through and work on those issues together. Sorry to go over.
And I think AI, land, air, and sea will be critically important. I would ask you engage with us in the committee on this. We don't want to see some product come out of the lower levels of the State Department that we've been, secluded from in darkness, or that we have no idea what's going on, when it's going to come out, what's going to be in it. And I think you're the perfect person to engage with this committee on the next 60 days, how we can work together to carry out the intent of Congress in passing this important legislation.
I completely, wholeheartedly accept that challenge, and I will make it so. Thank you.
Thank you.